She's trying to let me die. I started dying right before the camera switched over, and my sister was just like, "Alright, you're good, fam. Go." And then didn't turn on the audio, so y'all saw me dying, but y'all didn't hear the audio behind me dying.
Just one person.
What?
Just one person.
Who's the one person? Can you see? Go ahead and look at the list. The eye, yep. Mm-hmm. No. That means it's the little person. The person.
This person?
Yeah, users in chat. There you go. Hey, Mont. Hey, how you doing? And don't you ever tell me you ain't a mod, because it says you a mod on here. Definitely says, do you have, Audacity up?
Yeah, it's been recording. For like 5 minutes.
So it hurt me dying.
Yeah, that was recorded.
Oh, so my sister's trying to kill me, guys. Apparently I'm not important. She wanted me to die. She's like, suffer. Why are you wanting me to suffer? I'm giving people a little bit of time to get their lives together. Because this is just where we at. I didn't get my life together. I'll never get my life together. I need to get my life together. Alright. And we're going to make sure that we have everything here. All right, ladies and gents, thank you. Welcome. All right. Hello, is it me you're looking for? I'm done. That's all we're here for. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I'm actually in a good mood today, so that's the reason I'm extra goofy today. Hi guys, welcome, many blessings to Reiko's Weekend Detox. As you guys already know who I am, if this is your first time coming through, or if it's just, your millionth time coming through, it's Reiko, your friendly neighborhood witch, coming to you live from my living room in New York. And I realized I did forget to, send it some other places. My sister is really gonna be mad at me because I'm failing in my life. I didn't share it in the places I needed to share it.
What have you been doing in the past 2 minutes?
Dying. Did you not hear me die? Wait a minute. I feel like you didn't understand the death that was happening here.
Well, I understood. I saw it. I was a witness.
Y'all hear this? She was witnessing me die.
If you cough, you're fine. If you stop coughing, there's a problem.
I'm gonna run this back in a minute. In the meantime, in between time.
No, I mean, if you're choking and there's no sound coming out, then it's an issue. But if there's sound coming out, you're fine. I'm gonna do by trying to clear out the thing. I'm
gonna punch her in the face. Respectively punch my sister in the face. It would be out of love. I promise it would be out of love. It would be with healing crystals and everything. I'm joking. I would never hurt her. She knows this. I was expecting her to say some smart ass shit like, do I really? And just kind of go from there. Anyway.
I have thoughts. Just didn't say anything.
Okay, I'm not going to pay her no attention. We're going to run this back. I'm sorry, guys. Hi, guys. Welcome. Hello. I just want to go ahead and say real quick, welcome to Reiko's Weekend Detox. I am here to educate you guys through my journey and to possibly help somebody else who is going through their journey through the mental health community, as well as educate you guys and give you the tools to succeed and be amazing, okay? I'm in a very good mood. If you guys know, the last couple episodes has been kind of like a very rough beginning part of the year. I've been going through it. I ain't gonna lie. I've been going through it. I can honestly say today I'm actually doing mother sucking tastic in my life choices. I just feel good. I don't know how else to really explain it. I've been doing some arts and crafts stuff. I made some bath bombs that are cute and adorable for protective reasons and some bath salts, not for consuming, but actual taking baths in. For those heathens who instantly was like, ooh, drugs. No, that's not what we do here. We're definitely doing protective and healing spells and stuff like that. And, I've just been enjoying my moments. I did have a couple breakdowns, and stuff like that, but I just wanted to let you guys know, like, hey, I'm still human, and, humans make mistakes, and as a woman who is going through the journey and learning about, the medical field and pursuing a career in the medical field eventually after I finish my education and being there for people, it's just like I did not take time for myself and I had to really restart. But luckily, like this last week, I managed to cry, have panic attacks, sit down, evaluate my life, think about my life and my life choices, and here we are. So now I can sit down and talk a little bit more about, some women pioneers in the medical field. Other than last episode, we were talking about African American women who made a monumental mark in the medical field, career, and, bringing a stance, especially because this month is Women's Appreciation Month. We should be appreciated every single day. If you do not appreciate women, there's something seriously wrong with you because your mother was a woman. Like, just shocker. Gas. Your mother was a woman. You should appreciate women for bringing you in this world. There'll be some days I'll be sitting here telling my parents I didn't ask to be brought here. And then I have to sit here and be like, you know what? I appreciate the things that they do and everything they put us through. And I mean, like, no matter how much somebody can do you wrong, there's still a lot of good women out there. There's still a lot of good men out there. And this is just some of the women who brought forth and don't get a nearly enough recognition in being pioneers as women who decided to take a stance when it came down in a time, era where women didn't look at being treated equality when it comes to the medical profession and everything else like that. And like I said, last episode, I focused primarily on African American women because the history African Americans have when it comes to medical science. We have been test subjects. We, to this day, are still test subjects where we have been basically degraded. We are part of the reason why, pap smears were discovered. Literally a male doctor mutilating African American slaves' genitals and figured out how to do pap smears. Like that's the best way to ultimately put it. And the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. If you guys don't know what that is and you have a weak stomach, don't look it up. But if you are curious and you want to disturb yourself for the rest of your life, do it. Educate yourself. Like I said, there's a lot of things out there in the world that a lot of people fail to realize, and we have a lot of reasons to be upset. We have a lot of reasons to be mad. We have a lot of reasons to like not trust medical science, but at the same time, unfortunately, medical science is just that. It's a practice of medicine. Anything that they're doing in life is literally a practice. What are you doing? Why are you laughing? She easily got distracted. And I literally say that there's a lot of stuff that we tend to not pay attention to when it comes down to the medical field. And we try to back away from. So, like I said, I spent the first episode this month really hitting home when it comes down to African American pioneers when it comes to the medical field and those who don't get nearly enough recognition. And I wanted you guys to be fully aware of the history of it because a lot of these women, they had made a lot of breakthroughs, except for they were trying to educate children, and they were getting banished or disbarred, or basically we're saying we can't support you because you're wanting to teach our children about sex ed and pass out protection to them. Because I mean, honestly, if you're going to teach them about it, that's like DARE program. Most people don't realize the DARE program had a opposite effect of what they wanted. The DARE program basically influenced kids to want to go do drugs. Oh, it makes you psychedelic? I don't think any child who survived the DARE phase isn't on drugs now. Except for you. You was in DARE, right? DARE probably stopped. No, it didn't?
No. I mean, I saw people advertised there, but I never had to do it or anything like that.
If y'all didn't know, that's my sister. My manager. She's in the corner over here. She's trying to do the manager thing and make sure the audio and stuff is good. So ultimately, though, back to what I was saying, there's been a lot of stuff when it comes down to a lot of women who tried to make their mark. So what we're going to talk about today is not focused just on African American women. We're going to actually talk about a lot of first, because even if African American women is more near and dear to me, because that is dominantly, my race, and I am mixed with a bunch of other stuff, I still have to support and give recognition everywhere else, because there is a lot of women out there who do deserve that recognition, because even to this day, they're still competing in a man's world where they're not getting the same level of support, the same level of caring. And this is one thing I fight, like every walks of life. As women, we should not be combating against each other. We should not be fighting with each other, because even then, a lot of us who are in higher standings are looked at more as a trophy wife versus, somebody who has a brain or intelligence and things of that nature. We're not looked at as equals. And it's just, it is what it is. And I get it. And I'm going to always fight for equality for women. It's just, it is what it is. Like, there's nothing wrong with, kind of knowing where you stand. But then at the same time, it's one of those things you kind of need to be wary of. So what I want to go ahead and do is go ahead and talk about a couple of these women that I've ran across when I was sitting here doing my research, who I feel like if you guys never heard their names, you need to hear about them. Because honestly, women in all shapes of life in the medical field who've made any kind of change needs their recognition. Especially a lot of women who help find things, like find out about x-rays or improve on certain medical advances. Their ideas were stolen from them by men, and then they didn't get recognitions until years later. Because some people may have been the force or the code for some DNA. Ironically enough, I was actually in class this morning, and my teacher reminded me of Rosalind Franklin. She was an English chemist and x-ray crystallographer. Honestly, I think even in Cosmos, they'd mentioned her.
More than likely, I mean, she did find DNA.
She did find DNA. But the thing is, when she first discovered DNA, though, it was her male colleagues who got the recognition for it. And that was the problem. Rosalind Franklin had to literally fight to basically get the recognition that she was the one who discovered the pattern for DNA. And she also helped with the discovery of polio. But this woman was the main fighting force, and because she was a woman, they did not want to give her the recognition for that. Her male colleagues, who basically was just there for the most part and helped her, were the ones who got the publicity for it. They got the fame, they got the glory. She didn't get the fame and the glory until later on. And when people finally was like, yeah, no, that was definitely Rosalind Franklin. She deserves all of that for discovering DNA and the sequences for DNA. And then also helping discover, cures for polio and stuff like that. Like, these are people that a lot of people don't realize, that even women, and she was an English chemist. So she's, as white as they come. And that's the reason why, like, it's weird that a lot of people think that we're equal, but at the same time, we as women are not. Like, we can come from any different shades and tones and everything, and then still get less kind of recognition than, our male counterparts. And for her to be a person who was the main person who discovered DNA, to get that fame taken away from her because her male colleagues and male counterparts basically were like, yeah, no, we're the ones who were there. And they were like, oh, she's a woman. She don't know nothing. Here, go ahead and give it to the guys. That's impossible for her to do that. This was a time and frame. And then they later discovered that she was the driving force for this. So she is one of those women that we have to kind of, give that recognition to and give that, publicity to, because the fact to be, she was the reason why we were able to find the sequences for DNA and the strains for DNA. And she was also one of the first women in the U.S. to get an MD degree. A lot of people don't actually realize that as well. A lot of women did not have medical degrees back then, but she was the first woman in U.S. history to be granted. Because again, at this point, she could have easily passed the grades, but in order for in that time frame, she had to be granted to be able to have this education back in this time. And this was in 1849 at that time, where women weren't really meant to have education. They were meant to basically birth babies, and that's it. Or they go to a nursing school and they could be, nurses, and you'd be midwives. But at that time, women were not allowed to have a medical degree, but she was granted to get a medical degree, and she had to fight for that. She basically wanted to get better care, and would she like to receive better care. She saw one of her friends die and basically became deadly ill, and felt like because the male really wasn't there to support her friend bedside manner, she was like, no, we need to have a woman doctor there to help. What is he doing? My cat's doing the most. Y'all all know that every podcast day, my cat decides to do extra stuff in the middle of the podcast. He doesn't normally do none of this stuff. He decides into the podcast day to do all this extra stuff. Or when the camera's on. I think he just puts on the show when the camera's on. And I wonder who he gets that from. We're just going to figure that out.
He was looking at his reflection in the dishwasher, and he tried to open the dishwasher to get the other cat out.
Probably. He probably thought his reflection. Hi, love. How you doing? Now, when I mean like this woman had to literally be granted to get it, she was turned away by 10 medical schools before she was actually approved. They actually told her to disguise herself as a man to gain admission to get her MD degree, and she refused it. She was actually advised by a professor to disguise herself as a man to get her medical degree. Because ironically enough, a lot of women at that time, in order to get certain jobs, had to dress as men in order to pass off. And a lot of people don't know that about history. There was a lot of women out there who actually dressed up as men and went around as men in order to get equality or to have certain jobs or to take care of themselves and stuff like that. And she actually refused to disguise herself. She was like, I'm not going to do it. It's like, it was on her moral crusade that she wanted to be a woman. That is just it. She wanted to be recognized as a professional woman. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to just keep getting refused until somebody opens the door for me. And at the end of it, she eventually ended up getting into a medical college in Geneva Medical College in New York, Western New York. They basically had to ask the male students there to get permission to admit her, because it was based off of her peers whether or not she was going to get admitted into the school. And they were thinking it was a mere prank, so they agreed to admit her. And she seriously took her job seriously. She came in and she got her degree. It took this woman 10 tries, 10 no's from other medical schools back in 1849 before she can even do anything. So this woman, she turned around and she was like, no, I'm not going to disguise myself as a man. I want to be recognized. Geneva Medical School in West New York decided, hey, are you guys okay letting this woman in to get her medical degree, her MD degree? And they thought it was a joke, and they straight up said, we thought it was a joke. So we said, yeah. I could just imagine a bunch of frat boys just like, a woman, school, doctor? Sure, go ahead. And they let her in. And years following, she basically struggled to find work after she finally graduated. 1854, she co-founded the New York Infantry for Indigenous Women. At that time, she basically was like, nah, I'm gonna make my own spot. Since nobody else decided they wanted to give me a shot, I'm gonna find my own place. That's just it. For Indigenous women and children to serve the poor, she was definitely about, making sure people can go ahead and have equal, rights to, health care. And she wanted to make sure that, Because no offense, I'm going to tell y'all straight up. I'm going to tell you, and I'm pretty sure Kat and Khadijah agree. As a woman, I would not go to a male doctor to tell me about my body. Point blank. No. And this woman felt the same way. How in the world are you going to tell me how to take care of my body? You ain't got the parts that I got. And I'm not trying to sound sexist, but if you've ever sat down and talked to a male doctor, like an old school male doctor, most of them don't care at all. None whatsoever. So back to what I was saying. She basically helped people pursue a career in medicine. She encouraged women to support. She was literally a pioneer. She's literally a pioneer for a lot of stuff. So a lot of people don't understand, and it's one of those things that I have to tell people. So Elizabeth Blackwell was, like I said, first. Rosalind was the one who came to a chemist when it came to X-ray, and she didn't get hers. But Elizabeth Blackwell was, like I said, the first one. We've already talked about Rebecca Crumbler in my last episode. She was the first African American pioneer, so we're not going to really talk about that too much. Now, Mary Putnam Jacob, she was interesting. She helped debunk myths about menstruation. So, Mary Putnam, she basically helped debunk myths about menstruation and what the guidelines that was made for that. So, she started off a little weird. Back in biology, she decided she took a lot of interest in it, and she briefly considered dissecting a dead rat, and outside of class, and took a glimpse of his heart, and she's like, no, I want to be a surgeon. That's it. That's what I want to do in my life. So with Mary Putnam, she had no real support from her family. He was very reluctant on supporting her and getting her MD degree. But then he later basically said, you know what, I can't stop you from her receiving her medical degree from the Medical College of Pennsylvania in 1864. And she was like, look, I could probably find a better education. So she also managed to go to Paris to enhance that. And she was the first woman to ever go to Paris to get a continuation of her medical degree. She fought hard for her female pioneers. And again, this is Miss Mary Putnam. For co-education for medical students, because at this time when Mary Putnam decided to go to school, it was only like you either in a female driven school, which they only kind of didn't give them the full education. There used to be a joke, and I'm sidetracking and sidebarring, but there used to be a joke that up north had different education level than down south. So up north you get a whole different education experience than down south did. And that's kind of the same thing with the medical field. Women got different educational pieces than the males who were deciding to be doctors. And in her particular case, she felt like that's unfair. We should do co-ed. Everything they're learning, I should be learning. So she fought to try to end up getting co-ed schooling and education when it came down to women who were trying to go into the medical field. So she fought hard about that and experiencing also, clinical experiences at major hospitals, because back then women weren't allowed to go to major hospitals for their clinicals. Only males were. Females were mainly still going to like nurses stations. They were treating them more like nurses than doctors. And this is again in a time frame where women were not looked at seriously as medical professionals, as doctors. They were only looked at as midwives and nurses, because that's what nurses were supposed to be. All nurses had to be women, which I honestly, to this day, if you would say that to a male nurse, you'd be like, that's a little sexist. Because it is. And I mean, like, honestly, doctors, every nurse I've ever met will tell you doctors are the worst, especially male doctors. It is what it is. So she created an association for advancement for the medical education of women to address the inequalities, which A lot of other women were already on board on changing this. Like I said, Miss Blackwell was one of them, which she was, like I said, the first woman who ever got an MD. Then Rosalind Franklin was another pioneer as well, with her being the discovering of DNA. And like I said, it's like little people that helped out with that was just like, hey, look, we're going to try to make sure there's a difference and address these inequalities, because I want to be treated the same way as my male doctor counterparts. And they were trying to make sure. Now, she also did also wanted to fight for a different medical fields when it comes down to mental health as well. So she also wanted to make sure that she like fought for equality in the medical field when it came to female doctors. Like, hey, we're not nurses, we are actual doctors, and we need to be recognized as doctors. So she wanted the same equality as all these other male doctors who were getting the same education, but different clinical experiences and different backgrounds. Like, she was like, there's no reason we should be educated differently or in separate rooms. That's like, you know, having sex education in separate rooms. We're not going to teach you about guy parts, and we're not going to teach you about girl parts. I feel like, and this is probably going to have a lot of people against me, I feel like sex education should be done co-ed. You should teach about both parts at the same time. It's just it. Point blank. That's just my point. It's just it. Preston. She was another person who came up on here that I really wanted to talk about. She was the first woman dean of a U.S. medical school. She fought immensely to win opportunity for female students. Now this was probably back in a time of 1847. Like I said, all these women around the same time, they all, I don't know if they actually did form up together. That's the only thing I couldn't, because a lot of them was like 1847, 1849, 1845, like within that 1850 time frames. So I couldn't find out for a fact if like any of these women met each other, but they were all fighting the same fight. Like, we're trying to find equality. We want people to recognize us as doctors, not as nurses. We need to be recognized as such. But she was one of the first women who was the dean of the U.S. medical school. She became interested in medicine and psychology, working as a temperance activist in Pennsylvania. After apprenticing at a local doctor in 1947, she applied to all 4 medical schools in Philadelphia and was accepted by none of them. Again, this is in 1847, where women were basically looked at as, we don't take you serious. There's no way. That's too hard. Women brain can't comprehend the science. You can't be a scientist, because that's just how they looked at it. And I hate to say men are pigs, but men are kind of, back then were pigs. Like, now, not as much. Some of them still are. But, back then, men had pea brains. That was the best way to put it. They had pea brains. So in 1850, she entered the first class of the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania, Females Medical School of Pennsylvania, and she went on to become a professor there. When the medical society barred female physicians from training in clinics, because I guess apparently in Philadelphia, the medical society barred females from training in clinics at all, she recruited an all-women's board to establish a hospital where women could train. This is what I mean. Like, they were like, oh, we'll allow you to get the education, but we're not going to allow you to actually get the clinicals that you need. So again, this is why a lot of these women were fighting for that rights, because a lot of them weren't allowed to go to clinicals and get the experiences. You were allowed to get the book knowledge, but you were not allowed to get the hands-on experience. And I feel like as a doctor, because it is a medical practice, you are literally going to have to practice on a live human being, not cadavers. And I mean, even when I went through my medical school and learned how to do phlebotomy, we were testing on each other. Like, we literally were pulling blood from each other. I have a permanent hole in my arm for me letting people draw blood. That's why I know how to find my veins. Like, I know how to find my veins. I know how to find, like, all that stuff, because I had to test on myself. And other people had to test on me. So, like I said, she established this, board so people could train. And in 1866, she'd been appointed dean of the medical college in Philadelphia. because a lot of people loved her. It is. Eventually, she won the right for her students to train in a well-established Pennsylvania hospital later down the line. And then when the group entered the surgical theater, male students hissed and spatted at them. Like, they full-blown spit in their direction when they came to the surgical theater. But she remained the bigger person. She walked up in there with her held up high, and people like spitting in her direction. They literally would probably spit in her face, and she just did this. And then she went to do what she had to do. She was like, I'm not going to stoop to y'all level because y'all barbaric, but I'm going to literally sit here and prove to y'all that we're going to be great. So she was a bigger person in a time frame where she could have lost her cool and possibly went to jail for hitting the dude in the face, because that's still a thing back then. It is a thing. So in 1969, even after, the hissing and the spitting and the people kind of looking at her, Miss Preston eventually did a response to a campaign to prevent women from studying along men. She wrote, whenever it is proper to introduce women as patients, then also it is just for women to appear as physicians and students. Because it was okay back then for women to be like patients, to be presented as patients. So she basically was fighting and saying, in order for us to be patients, then you should allow us to be physicians as well as students, because it makes no sense for us we are allowed to be patients, but we're not allowed to be physicians, and we're not allowed to be students, which makes no sense. Like, you need to make it make sense. She's like, please make it make sense. So let's go ahead and talk about my other side of my race here. We're going to talk about Miss Susan Pacioli. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing her last name wrong. MD. She was a Native American. She was the first Native American woman to get a medical degree. When she was young, she saw a Native American woman die because a white doctor refused to take care of her because of her skin, and because, us lovely quote unquote brown people are not, humans. We suffer nearly less than half the people in the world. We can take a lot. We were conditioned and believed to take a lot. We've talked about this in prior episodes that, society has looked at us as strong people that could take a lot of pain. Oh, no, we cannot. We bleed. We feel pain. You pinch me, I'm gonna say ow, and I mean it. It hurts. I mean, not me as much, but still, I go through a lot. But she saw another Native American woman die because somebody else refused, and that was what driven her to become a doctor. I've realized a lot of these women who seeked medical professions witnessed an injustice or saw something that wasn't right, and they were deciding, I want to make a change. Like, one doctor saw her friend die, and she said, no, I'm not going to do that. Like Elizabeth Blackwell, the first, woman to get her MD, and she basically got refused. She saw a friend die because of a male doctor and their bedside manner not taking her serious. So she decided to go pursue her medical degree. Rebecca Crumbler, she was the first African American woman. She saw many of her ill neighbors get mistreated, and she was like, no, I don't want to keep watching my fellow men die. I want to make a change. And if they're not going to treat us, then who else is going to treat us? I'm going to get a career. And then, Mary Putman, she saw a glimpse of a heart. And she was like, it fascinated her. She just got fascinated from seeing, how the human body works and how animal bodies works. And, they always say that, seeing a girl or a guy dissect an animal, they're most likely going to be a serial killer. No, this girl was fascinated with biology, and she wanted to, figure out and become a scientist. She wanted to heal people. And then now when it comes down to Anne Preston, she saw, the hostility and the inequality in hospitals when it came to, female doctors compared to male doctors. And then now when it comes down to Susan, she literally saw a Native American woman die in front of her, and she's like, no, I want to become a doctor. I want to be the change. I want to see something different. I want to do something different. And honestly, that's how my journey started. Like, I saw other people in similar situations or worse situations and not getting the proper care or the proper treatment, and was like, no, I want to make a change. I want to tell, other people that it's okay to not be okay, that, Black people have depression and mental health as well, and that, Native Americans, and we can't just push it down. It's not even just Black people. It's also, Spanish people. There's, Asian kids. There's a lot of people out in the world who have depression, and we don't talk about it nearly enough because our parents are basically conditioned to believe that mental health illness is a white person's condition, and it's not a Caucasian. It's not a Caucasian thing. It's literally a condition for all human beings. We all have the same conditions and all have the same problems. It is what it is. But back to Susan Brocati. She was one of the first Native American women in the United States to earn a degree in medicine. She was a daughter of the Omaha chief who believed in partnering with white reform groups. She studied in New Jersey and then taught at a Quaker school at the Omaha Reservation. She helped and aided a lot of people like Alice Fisher, who urged her to pursue medicine in 1889. She graduated from Women's Medical College in Pennsylvania at the top of her class. She was a very intelligent woman. And she strived. She had a goal. She wanted to help her people. And it's all it really took for her. Like, she watched somebody in her village die, and she was like, no, I don't want to see this no more. I want to be the change. If nobody else is going to take care of us, then we need to take care of us. When she returned home, she served a population of more than 1,300 people, often walking miles and working along through the night. She pursued political reforms. She actually led a delegation in Washington in 1906 to basically in the lobby of prohibition of alcohol on the reservation. She was a fighter when it came down to her people. In 1913, she achieved a lifelong dream of opening a hospital in a remote reservation town in Waterhill, Nebraska. So she opened her own hospital in 1913. This woman had goals. Her being already the first Native American MD in the world, like in the U.S. It was like she pushed for it. It's literally doing what she had to do. I also have Miss. I'm gonna pronounce this lady's name wrong, and I said it like 3-4 times in my head before it happened. Miss Cori. I'm gonna just say her name's Cori. Miss Gerty Cori. Gerty, last name Cori. Gerty. Because I'm trying to put a TH in there and there wasn't. Okay, so Miss Gerty, she was the first U.S. woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize in Science. Her and her husband actually worked alongside, and they were rarely treated as equals. Like, for some reason, her and her husband were like, yeah, we're equals, but society was like, nah, your husband is superior. Again, this is another woman who was around the time of like 1986 to 1957 time frame. She won a Nobel Peace Prize basically during medical school. She was attending medical school in 1922 with her and her husband in Buffalo, New York. She did constructing biomedical research in a state institute where she was warned that she was ruining her husband's career. If they continued to collaborate together, that she was going to ruin her husband's career and his status. And they said, no. We're not gonna deal with that. We're not gonna let that go into any effect. I love how Nico has just made himself super comfy right here. Spastic kitty. And they continued And they went on to publish dozens of papers together as they continued, because they didn't look at her as an equal to him. They just looked at her as like a secretary or basically an assistant. They didn't really take them being both scientists serious. And they were like, no, you're gonna, if you continue working with your husband, you're gonna ruin his notoriety. And she was like, no. And her husband was like, no, she's not. Like, this is my wife. I trust her. Like, that's a true husband right there. He's like, despite everything, he was like, no, she ain't gonna ruin nothing. I'm gonna stay here with her. And they continued. And they basically looked into how the body uses energy from food and how they basically convert energy from food. They basically talked about how glucose become metabolized and everything else like that. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have found out how glucose works in our body, and how they paved the way to basically find out about diabetes and treating diabetes. Like, these two people basically helped discover how, glucose was getting broken down and everything else like that. They were like, no, we gonna figure this out. Me and you against the world. It's just me and you against the world, baby. Me against the world. I'm done. I'm joking. Later down the line, Miss Carl was courted for various institute. Sorry, not his wife, but they were basically trying to get him to come down for a different institute and become a department chair for the Washington University schools and St. Louis and a few other stuff. But Gerty remained a research assistant in society's eyes. They didn't really think of her as a real blown scientist with an MD, nothing. Eventually, in 1947, they became nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Gerty was promoted to a professional biochemist at that time. Unfortunately, during the 1947, she also developed a rare blood disease. And she fought it for about another decade. Melafibrosis. I can never say that one either. But it was a blood disease she ended up getting, and she refused to give up her research into the last few months of her life. But she basically kept going, and the same year they got nominated, they basically, she was like, nah, man, I'm gonna keep going. This is what I love now, and I'm gonna keep doing. I was also looking at Miss Patricia Goldman Roderick. She did a lot of brain breakthroughs. This woman, I want to say, a reason why I wanted to talk about her is for multiple reasons. Alzheimer's disease, cerebral palsy, Parkinson's, schizophrenia. A lot of the reasons why a lot of us understand these mental breakthroughs, including schizophrenia, it was because of the groundbreaking research of this woman. If it was not for Miss Patricia Goldman Roderick, we would have never known anything. She received her PhD from UCLA in 1963. She achieved unprecedented insight from the brain's frontal lobes, working at a time when the prefrontal cortex was deemed too complex to research in detail. She mapped the regions out. She took the time. She was like, you know what? Challenge accepted, guys. Oh, it's too complex? Challenge accepted. So she basically decided to map out the regions, and she shed light on some of the critical functions as, planning, working memory, and things of that nature. Like, so without her, we wouldn't know about a lot of these mental health issues and stuff like that. So she achieved herself by taking a approach to it that most people didn't really want to look at. She took out an anatomy, a biochemistry, and a pharmaceutical approach to looking into it, to finding out more about the frontal cortex. And I mean, like, the frontal lobe of the brain was just, like I said, a lot of people thought it was too complex at that time. So in 1979, after conducting research using the three different approaches, the anatomy, the biochemistry, and the pharmaceutical look into it, she basically had a lot of prestige institutes like MIT. And if you know anything about MIT, you got to be very smart to go to MIT. I would kill to be able to go to MIT.
No, I'm good.
What do you mean, no, you good? You don't want to go to MIT?
No, why would I do that?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You ain't a big on science, though.
I love science. I don't want to do it, though.
She's like, I don't want to do it, though. Y'all hear this? My sister said, nah. So she basically, and basically also the National Institute of Health. She had appointments in several departments, including neurology and psychiatry. I can't say words. I get tongue-tied a lot, guys. Y'all know this. I always tell people, y'all sit here and say y'all love to hear me talk, and I'll be like, I don't know why, but it's okay. She basically ended up doing a lot of stuff when it comes down to the brain and psychology and neurology. Over her career, she published more than 200 papers and received numerous honors, including admissions to the National Academy of Science in 1990. She had a lot more to contribute. She continue to contribute and add notes to her peers and work together in research to continue with the medical health science and how the brain works with certain mental diseases and certain things, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's and, you know, short-term memory loss in the frontal cord of your brain. So in 2003, unfortunately, she did continue to help her colleagues up until the time that she got struck by a car in 2003 and died a few days later. A lot of people looked at her as a mentor. A lot of people looked at her as a person for guidance because she wanted so badly to figure out the brain and how it functioned and why it functioned the way that it did. And without her finding the roadmaps, we would have found out about a lot of these mental diseases, including stuff that affect our motor skills and affect, you know, our memory and how we figure out puzzles and stuff like that, and how we analyze things. Like the frontal cortex was the most complex part of the brain and nobody else wanted to look into it. But this woman sat down and said, challenge accepted, guys. I'm going to figure this out. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't discover half the stuff that we know now. A lot of these women in the world have found a lot of things. And we don't recognize women nearly enough. Especially when it comes down to like the medical field. There is a lot of women out there who are still looking and fighting for equality in this world. Especially in the medical field. To be recognized by their peers as an equal. Very few women are part of the board at their hospitals. Very few women doctors get the same recognition or praise as their male counterparts. Even then, back in the day, like I said, you know, Rosalind Franklin, her colleagues got the recognition for her discovering the sequences of DNA, even if she was the main one who discovered it. Elizabeth Blackwell literally got turned down by 10 schools before they were basically like, yeah, a woman in school? Sure. Whatever. It would be nice to have, you know, a woman here. And she showed them. She showed them for sure. I try to tell people, like, you don't know how much, like, women gotta go through in this world to even understand, like, we need to appreciate them to the fullest. And women of all diversity, every walks of life, we all go through a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't go through, that understand what we go through. You never know what a woman's going through until you could be able to actually sit down and talk to one. Because for me, I can tell you like this. As a black woman in America, trying to go to school and work a full-time job and multitask and do a lot of stuff. when I have too much time or don't have enough time and I put all my work and my effort into working, I'm looked at as a workaholic. But it's because as a black woman, I have to strive even harder than a white woman or somebody who has an advantage over in medical science. Or if I had a podcast, let's say me and Kat both had a podcast. You guys know my roommate, I love her to death. But if me and her both had a podcast together, or she had her podcast, I had mine, she would get more recognition on her podcast and more people wanting to listen to her podcast. And we could be talking about the same thing. Exact same thing. But they would rather listen to her than listen to me. Because, again, society has made women, especially women of color, to be believed that we don't have feelings. We are strong women. We're angry women. We don't really have any other emotions other than angry and bitter and occasionally sadness. But in all actuality, we have to strive to be harder. We have to go even further. We have to do a lot of stuff. And I'm not trying to take away from, the demographics, especially when it comes down to women as a general. I feel like we should still support each other at the end of the day, because even they have to struggle going through the same thing, going through the same education, getting the same recognition, getting the same respect. Even when it comes down to women in the military, they're not nearly as strong or looked at as strong as, their male counterparts and stuff like that. Like, my mom will tell you, it took her several times to go up in rank. Like, my biological mother. My biological mother was in the Air Force, and she wasn't looked at the same way as her male counterparts in the Air Force. And even my ex, he will tell you, most of the female people who were in the Navy, they weren't looked at the same way as males were. They were like, oh no, we have to, put the females in a different ship than the guys, especially if we go out and stuff like that. So, I get it in a sense, and I know a lot of guys who are in the military who will beg to differ, but there is a lot of people out there that there's still a lot of injustice in a lot of the systems, and a lot of people don't see it. And I feel like we need to take time to appreciate women. I mean, women who are good, not the bad ones. We can't. I mean, if they're messed up, they're messed up. People have flaws, and if they're not willing to see their flaws, they're just not gonna go. But take time to go and tell a woman you appreciate them at some point in time. It doesn't matter who it is, what they do, when they did it. As long as they can be an adult enough to acknowledge that they're wrong, then fine, then go ahead and do that. But all in all, go appreciate a woman. Go hug your mother. Go hug your aunt. Go hug your grandmother. Appreciate them for the rest of this month, because as women, we don't get enough recognition. We have so much hate against us as it is, as a whole. And as women, we should support other women versus hating on other women. We should be sitting here saying, yes, queen, when they're sitting here wearing some jeans, or, start an OF account. You have an OnlyFans account? Cool. Yes, queen, do you. We got to support each other. If you want to sit here and pursue a school career, then support a school career. That's the reason why I don't have no hate in my heart for no other woman. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we got enough hate against us. Why do I want to waste my energy hating other women? Like, it makes no sense. Like, if you doing the same thing I'm doing, trying to survive in the world, in the man's world, then you doing your job. Like, you surviving. But what I want to go ahead and say is like this, man. Mental health is important. Not just, appreciating women out there and the women who have been strong in the medical field, in the military, in the world of corporate America. Women in general, if you are sitting here and you are surviving day to day, you are taking care of yourself, staying hydrated, eating 3 square meals a day, managing to survive, or not even 3 square meals a day, just surviving and going through the motions and kicking ass at it. I commend you. You are amazing. You're great. You're wonderful. And I want you to keep striving to be amazing, great, and wonderful. Don't let society tell you any differently. Don't let anybody who is a hater be your motivator, because at the end of the day, the only person who should motivate you is you. But at the same time, I see you. If nobody else tells you today, I see you. I see you being great. If I am following you on social media, if I'm following you on any of my social platforms, or if you ain't following me on one of my social platforms, please do. Because then if I follow you back and I would sit here and hype you up and share your stuff and be like, yes, queen, yes. Because we have to be here to support each other. And my sister is not putting up the socials like she's supposed to. This is why I have another person to be a whatchamacallit, but I don't think they done dipped out on me too. No, I'm going to tell them about themselves in a minute too. Exclamation point social. Exclamation point social. You totally forgot the S. Keep talking. But I see you guys. I appreciate you guys. I want you guys to understand that at the end of the day, I want y'all to know that, you know, we're in this together as women. We're here together. And I may not have all the answers. I may not say a lot of things that a lot of people don't appreciate. I may say some things that a lot of people don't agree with. But guess what? Opinions are like assholes and everybody has them. And at the same time, I'm also going to always tell you things that I believe. And I'm also receptive to learning. I don't know everything. I'll never know everything. I am flawed 100%. I will tell you straight up. I don't judge people. I don't have the time to judge people. I might sit here unless you give me a reason to. And I mean, like, you really got to cross that bound for me to get to that point. But I see every woman on my timeline on IG and I support them. I see every guy on my timeline and I support them. I'm a big supporter until you give me a reason not to support you. And like I said, it takes a lot for me to get to that point. But I see you guys. I see you doing the thing over there. You know, starting that business, hydrating, getting your hair right, smiling. And I'm proud of y'all. I'm proud of every single one of y'all. I appreciate not just the women out there. I appreciate the guys out there as well. Anybody who is fighting to make a change or make a difference or leave their mark, I'm proud of you guys. I want to go ahead and end this real quick with telling some people that I support them and supporting me this last couple weeks. And sitting here and they're being magical. And kind of going from there. I want to go ahead and give some support to my photographer, Jasmine Denise. As always, that's my boo, my A1 since... Well, she's not my A1 since day one. I can't do that because that title is already given to my cousin. I would give it to my photographer. Actually, both my photographers. I don't have just one anymore. I got two favorite photographers. I got Kat, so I got to give my support to her. Yes, Kathleen Bennett Photography. And I got to also give it to Jasmine Denise Photography, so JDP Empire as well, which there's a lot of amazing things following there. So if you guys need to follow that. Kirby, which was my Barbara and Jax, being amazing, being a great support this last couple of weeks, supporting and suggesting a lot of stuff for me on my own personal level, outside my podcast, and just all around just being a good ear sometimes. My cubby in London, I see him growing and manifesting greatness over in the UK, and I appreciate him for his support in the last couple weeks. I want to give also a shout out to my friend Jody. Jody being a big monumental support to me and giving love to me and sitting here and, you know, giving me my space and letting me vent to him when I needed some venting. My cat is judging me and have his ears cocked back. I don't know what's going on. I don't like the way he's staring at me. He's really staring at me. Malice, my favorite spawn. Him for coming up here to celebrate my birthday with me, being amazing and just all around just keeping me level-headed in the last few months. I want to thank him. Also, he's my mod, so I had no other choice but to give him some kudos, except when he wasn't here to put my socials up, and my sister had to do it for me. My A1 since day one, always got to give her kudos. Me and her, we've been socializing a lot now. I'm probably ain't going to hear too much from her since she got a puppy now. It's all right. I love her. It's all right. She's my baby. John Q from All My Homies. Let me go ahead and tell you about this. This is my black boy magic, my eye candy. I joke around and call him the eye candy. On Wednesdays, if you guys have not checked out All My Homies and John Q, he's amazing. Follow them on IG, All My Homies, and then I am John Q. They're amazing as well. He's a very, very inspirational guy who's out there trying to basically help support other artists and get artists out on the map, and I feel like he's doing a very good job at that. My parents, all of them, including my adoptive mothers and my mama bats, I appreciate every single one of them. My sister for tolerating me on her good days, except for when I want to kick her upside her head because she exists. But I think that's just story, and she's like, yeah. I will go ahead and let y'all know there is a person I'm going to give his kudos to because I feel like he deserves his kudos. He goes by Respect Mr. Walker or LRK Chronicles. That is my big bro. He ain't that much older than me. He's only like 30 days older than me, but he's like my big brother. And I can tell you, I gotta give him his kudos. I support him. He randomly judges my poems for me and always there for me. And then when I tell him about like these people who are nothing but fuck boys in my DM, he just laughs. He's like, "Brett, that's why you're supposed to send me a screenshot so I can make a proper evaluation before you make some dumb decisions." I was like, "Yes, sir. Yes, big brother." Okay, that's how he got the title big brother, because he told me, he's like, "Look, you need me to evaluate these people before I can tell you whether or not he name or not, and then go from there." He's really cool. He's a good artist. I support him 100%. And I'm still mad that he decided to throw a whole concert after I moved out of Florida, but we ain't gonna talk about that. And last but not least, no, it's not last but not least. I also give support out to Keezy, my pain in the ass best friend. Even if like me and him, we tend to talk and then not talk and then talk and then not talk. It's just a going cycle whenever he's not pissing me off, or vice versa. So there's that. And I support. I give kudos to all the guys that support me. Every single person who's been supporting me, Nikki, Judith, like everybody. I appreciate every single one of you guys for sticking out with me. I love every single one of y'all. It's been a rough year, but shoot, we're still going. We're still here. We're still pushing. We're still kicking. And we're going to keep going into the next month. We're going to figure out this topic for next month. I don't know if we're going to just do, user's choice, but we'll talk about something. We'll talk about something. Hell, we might even talk about OS and mental health. We'll go from there. But we'll see. But guys, let me end it with this. I'm going to go ahead and say with this. You guys know the motto. It is okay to not be okay. Self-love is the best love. Self-care is the best care. Stay hydrated. Stay healthy. Don't let nobody disrespect you. Don't let nobody halfway love you. And make sure you guys stay tuned. We have our episodes every second and fourth Friday, and it uploads on Spotify that following Sunday. Make sure you follow on Twitter. I'm going to try my best to be more active on sharing stuff. Sorry. It's just been a hard 30 days between, losing a friend, my birthday, losing a grandmother figure, and just a lot of stuff. It was a lot. So I'm going to try my best to be more focused and more up to date. I'll be streaming gaming tomorrow. So I love you guys. Be great. And thank you again for tuning in. From your friendly neighborhood witch, Lord Jesus. And have a good night and good weekend. Bye.